Now on to our next talking business head, Nicola Youern, Chief Executive of You, a leading charity with a £12 million turnover and number 12 in the Sunday Times Best 100 Public Charities to Work For. Nicola was recently voted by the News at Portsmouth, I've no idea who they are, as Business Personality of the Year, as well as winning the prestigious Marks & Spencer's Sieff Award for her work with business. It's an impressive track record. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nicola Youern.
What an act to follow, and I do feel like I'm about to say, and now for something completely different, because this is something completely different. And I'm really sorry that I'm not wearing a pair of Kurt Geiger shoes, so that's on my list of things to aspire to. I'm also really honoured to be here today, because actually I run a charity. But although we're a charity, we will always be a business first. And I tell my staff that every day at our Looking at You days that we have every month. I say to you, you may work for a charity, but never forget that we're a business first and we will run as a business. As a business, we do seek to make a margin every year. As time goes on, that's getting tinier and tinier. And as a business that has to work on very, very small margins, we've got to be very focused, very good at what we do. We've got no rooms for mistakes whatsoever, and we have to concentrate on growth. So that's kind of the nature of the challenge we have. And any profit that we make, we reinvest in our work. So that's the difference. A little bit about us. I guess, has anyone heard of You in this room? One of our trustees is sat in the audience. I would see a hand goes up there. Okay. We provide care, support and advice services to help vulnerable people have the life they want. I was really struck, parked at Chesil Street this morning, came down through the stairwell, and there's a guy sleeping in the stairwell at Chesil Street car park this morning. And I thought, you know what, wouldn't have seen that 2 years ago. And that will stay with me for the rest of the day, because there is no reason why anyone in this country should have to be sleeping in a stairwell. I think that's appalling if that's what we've got back to. And that's what moves me to do what I do. Our clients tell us that we give them the tools and the resources that they need to live safe, secure, stable, happy lives, and give them the freedom that they need. So that's broadly who we are. Just put some flesh on what that looks like. We work with people who've got mental ill health. We work with young people who are homeless, many of them 16 and 17-year-olds. We work with people who've got a learning disability. We work with women and children who are escaping domestic violence. We work with ex-offenders. So it's a broad range of people that we're seeking to support. And we do that by providing homeless hostels, women's refuges, registered care homes. We provide legal advice services right the way through from general advice to representation in court. We provide help to people living in their own home to stay independent. We help people to prevent them from losing their tenancies. We're doing a lot of work at the moment, specialist work around housing benefit and the changes to housing benefit to help people remain in their homes. So it's a huge, huge portfolio of activity that we undertake. Some key facts about us as a business. Turnover's not 12 million, it was. It's now 11. And 2 years ago, it was 13. So in the last 2 years, we've been hit by cuts. And that's not contract closures, that's cuts to our contract of 2 million. And that's a downward spiral that we're facing. 483 staff, so it's not huge, but we've got a large number of staff based right across Hampshire and Dorset. So I've got teams of 5 operating in Bridport alone, miles away from head office, back to about 50 people working in Portsmouth, Basingstoke, Winchester, right the way across the patch. We've also got about 100 people who work on what we call the Premier Crew, which is our internal staffing agency. So they come and they go on very, very flexible contracts. We support about 12,000 people every year. 9,000 of those 12,000 come to us for advice. They queue at the end of the door in Portsmouth every morning, and they come in for basically legal advice. And that queue is getting longer and longer. And the numbers of people that are coming to us from help and support are getting bigger and bigger. So we have increased demand. In terms of the nature of what we do, we're contracted to do everything that we do. Back in 2003, we were a traditional charity. Did a bit of fundraising, got some money through welfare benefits. Not today. In 2003, Labour said, do you know what, all this work should be under contract. So we now have 50 contracts for all of the work we do. We contract with local authorities, and we spend our whole time considering how are we going to keep that contract, what will happen when it goes out to tender, what work can we bid for, where can we grow. That's the nature of our work now. And it's very aggressive. And we'd never think the charity sector could be aggressive, but it is. If I go after a contract, I don't know, in Oxford, I'll be up against 40 other organisations bidding for that piece of work. And if a piece of my work goes out to tender, there'll be 40 trying to take it off me. So it is a very, very aggressive marketplace in which we work. And against all of that, we have huge numbers of hoops and hurdles that we have to go through. So for all of those contracts that we are quality audited to death. And in terms of quality, we have to reach higher and higher standards of service delivery. So in the old days, if you had a contract and it was graded at quality A to D, you could be at C. Today, you have to prove that you're at B moving to A for less money. We're constantly assessed to make sure we're an organisation that's worth contracting with. We have to meet local authority protocols. We report on performance indicators every month. And for every person we work with, every client we work with, we have to monitor their journey and prove that we delivered an outcome. And up until last April, those outcomes were actually reported to government. So government knew of every single person we worked with and what happened to them. And we had to report on that. So think of the costs that we have to have behind that. This stuff is really important because what's happening at the moment is that there's huge swathes of cuts to the sort of work that we do. And yet all the work that we do actually saves local authorities money. So our first-based service that's mentioned there, we help young people get into accommodation, into work. For every young person that we are helping into that accommodation, into work, we're saving somebody else about £30. And for every young person we take off the street, 16 and 17-year-olds homeless, we're saving local authorities huge amounts of money. So in many ways, some of these short-term knee-jerk reactions and the cuts that are happening somewhere down the line are going to cost a lot of people an awful lot of money. In terms of other things on value for money, we encourage all of our clients to volunteer, so there's a huge impact there. We try to get everybody into work. We're incredibly successful at getting our young people into work. So there's a lot of value in terms of our impact on the economy of the sort of work that we do. Maureen said to me, can you talk about challenge, inspiration, and motivation? And I guess that's the challenge. That's the challenge that I work with every day of the week. And I stopped and I thought, you know, what's my inspiration? What do I do what I do? And I went back to when I was young. And my inspiration comes from the fact that I was sacked from my first job when I was 16 because I rang something up wrong on the till. And I've never forgotten that. And I made it in my mind, did you know what? I would never treat anyone like that. And I left university and went to work for another retailer, who should be nameless, who I thought was an appalling employer. And I spent my time watching and deciding that if ever I ran a business, I would never treat everybody like that. I would want coming to work to be an incredibly special, motivating experience. And then I went to work for the NHS and was really lucky to work on the first programme moving people out of hospital into the community back in '83, and saw people who should never have been in hospital living independent lives free for the first time. And that really inspired me. And then MenCap came along, the national charity, who I've still got huge amounts of love for, really, and said to me, would you come and work with us and just start doing things in West Sussex? And they offered me a company car, and I thought, whoa, Ford Escort, a red Ford Escort, never forgotten. I thought I was so cool. But they gave me an office in Emsworth that was the back of a solicitor's practice. I had a desk, I had a bucket that caught the drips that came through the ceiling, and they said, this is it, and we'll come back in 3 months and see what you're doing. And there was nothing. And for the first time, somebody said to me, what we've given you is an idea. You need to go out, negotiate, win the contracts, get the money, build it, and we'll come back and see how you're going on. And there's nothing. There's no support, there's no help, there's nothing. You're on your own. And at that point, I could have said, oh, whoa, this is way too difficult. And I could sit here for 3 months and do nothing. Or actually, I could take the challenge, rely on myself, believe in myself, know that I can do it. What you said, be cleverer than I thought I could be. Do a bit of blagging, go up there and do it. I remember my first meeting, trying to blag my way through that, not even knowing what I was talking about. But, you know, I was just so determined to make something happen. And within two years, we had 10 services, we had 100 staff, and I moved to Hampshire, and it went on from there. And I think that was the real challenge to me, was to get off my backside and make something happen. And so that, for me, is where that kind of personal inspiration has come from. But there's also what I call the game. And for me, I don't like to say that my work is a game, because that sounds like I'm sort of minimising the importance of it. But actually, it's the game of the business that I love. I love the strategy. I love the vision. I love the dream. I love spotting the gaps in the market. I love knowing where it needs to go before anyone ever tells me in government that's where they're going. I can smell it, I can feel it, I can breathe it, and I absolutely love it. I love the chase. I love winning contracts. I hate losing. I love going out there and beating the competition. I know in this sort of sector that's probably not what you should talk about, but that's part of what inspires me and gets me up every morning, is the thought of that win. And when that win is combined with changing someone's life, that's an amazing reason to get up and go to work. Huge buzz. Our challenging environment, as we look at it now, sustained cuts. Back in 2003, if I bid for work and we bid on hourly rates, I'd be bidding at £23 an hour to do all that I described to you. At the end of the Labour government, I was bidding at £19 an hour. Today, I am lucky to get £15 an hour. Now, if you think about the fact that I've got staff, I've got the same costs that are being cut continuously, we have got to be so smart and so clever and so slick at what we do to be able to deliver the same and better at £15 an hour than we were delivering £23 an hour. So gone are our marketing budgets. Gone, I haven't got a secretary anymore, gone. Gone is all our support. We have to focus on what we need to do to cope and to grow. We can't cannibalise ourselves. My finance director talks about cannibalism. There's a point at which you start to eat yourself if you cut too much. We have to be ready for when we can grow again and invest in that. Constant tendering. We have to be so good at bidding. We have to get bidding off to a fine art, making sure that we know how to write bids, how we present ourselves, because when you're up against 40 organisations, part of that relationship of who you are and how you sell yourself is so important.